What is up, everybody? Or should I say, hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages. Welcome to another Disney lawsuit. Yes, welcome today. We are live, and I am, of course, Andrew Esquire of the Legal Mind. So we teach you to be your own judge. I am, of course, a Florida attorney who specializes in special district law, in-house counsel, as well as all things Disney. So we're going to crack into this one today. Good to see everybody in the chat here. We are live on Locals. We are live on Rumble. We're live on all the platforms, everywhere you guys want to be or don't want to be, wherever. We're still going to be there. It's all good. I'm also moving my other monitor kind of like off the screen there. But yeah, we're live show against us live, not pre-recorded, not a premiere. We are live. Crazy, right? I've actually been doing a lot of lives lately, but there's been a lot of breaking news. And today this is the hot off the presses. This is a lawsuit that literally dropped it came out and became public pretty much today. So it was filed earlier this week, but really did not become released until later. So we're going to get into that. This is the Stourbridge investment suit versus it is a shareholder suit versus Walt Disney Company versus Chapek, the company, Christine McCarthy, Kareem Daniel, Susan Arnold. We're going to get into that. But let me give a quick shout to everybody, whether you're on Locals, Rumble, or YouTube. First, I'll start out with a quick shout out to my folks here, folks here in the YouTube chat, my members. By the way, Hunch, hope you're all right down there in the hurricane. But honestly, we have hurricane parties. I remember getting ragingly drunk during Katrina. It was a good time when it hit Florida. Not when it hit Louisiana, but when it hit Florida, we were just partying because that's what we do. But yeah, let me give a shout out. Stephen Gilly, good to see you. Incoherent Turd, Danielle, Bob Johnson, Mike L, Corey Cast, Andrew F, Super 2323, Hunch the Dirty Roofer. Who else do we got up in here? Benjamin Turkoff, Timothy Smith, Ted Park, good to see you. Bella Stella, Not K. Who else? Deha Ko, good to see you. My Kyopo brother, Melissa Jennings, good to see you here hanging out today. Sherry as well, hanging out in the chat. All my members over here. We now have like a sea of green. I see Bubble 308 and some other folks here checking in the chat. And also we've got some secret chads. Oh, we've got Blue Fire, Stuart Nielsen as well. Members in the chat, and we've got Stephen Gosney. The Goss is in here, which is absolutely making it a Florida Man stream. We are strapped in and strapped on for a Florida Man stream. Mexican Iron Man saying, listening to you while I'm at the gym. Hashtag dang it, Bob. You are going to need to squat off that guacamole, Mexican Iron Man. You gotta put in an extra rep for those chimichangas. Actually, to be quite honest with you, I had some fire Mexican last night here at this rooftop bar in Bangkok. I love to be able to get like good Mexican food no matter where I am in the world. I found the best place in Seoul, finding like the good places in Bangkok. So it's getting good. It's getting good. Kiss My Grits says for 10 legal. Love your channel on legal analysis. Would love to see a future video on the University of Wyoming sorority case against the tea they were forced to accept. A judge dismissed the case today. Oof. I will definitely get into that. I've actually, so about this case, I've actually covered this. I mentioned it when it came up. I talked about the basic facts of the case. It wasn't enough. There wasn't enough meat on the bone for me to do a whole episode on it. But certainly I could review the dismissal. If there's like reasoning for the dismissal, I could read through that. I absolutely think there's going to be more lawsuits, and this is the next battle. The next battle is the women against the T's, right? Who is going to win that one? Is it going to be women that are fighting for the things that they fought for so long, right? Or is it the T's? And frankly, the law is on the favor of the T's. So that's a whole separate topic. But of course, it actually ties in with Disney. And it's so weird how these topics tie in for Disney because, of course, if you haven't seen it at the boutique photos, we can obviously show those one more time so you guys get those they are really spreading like this. These videos and these people, are spreading. Obviously, the most famous incident here involved this dude who now is working at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. Let's show this. Let's throw this one up here real quick. Obviously, you guys have probably seen this dude, right? So this was the biggest one. This one kind of kicked it off. This dude is literally around children. He's dealing with your children here. And this caused a big controversy. Now it appears there's another 2 or 3 guys who are working there, men in dresses, talking to children with their hairy legs, just like coming up and talking to your little boy about being a princess. Absolutely great. Fantastic. Support it. I'm joking. But this is what they support. This is what they're pushing out there. This is what they're putting out to families. So obviously, it's a weird world in which these things come together. But also a weird world. Stephen Ghazi for $10 for the cheapest advertising you can buy for the cheapest advertising to 350 people right now says, how about a Ghazni promoting ideas and informations on Reedy Creek? Shout out to Stephen the Gaz, right? And actually, shout out to the Gaz. He actually was over there at Reedy Creek very recently. I'm going to see if I can find the photo. He had sent me the photo, but he was over there at Reedy Creek very, very recently. So shout out to the Gaz. Really a man of the world, not just a man of Florida, but a man of the world. I'll get that photo found a little bit later. Stephen, pull that up. But Gaz is absolutely a G. So pull up, find his videos, find his book on ideas and answering the law. Stephen Ghazi said, nah, $2 is cheap. I mean, how low can you go is what I would ask Steve. How low can you go? For a Florida man, there's never too low. The Florida man can always find a new bottom because the swamp does continue to sink deeper. That's the truth. That's what Florida men know. The swamp can go very, very deep, like 3 feet or 4 feet. But hey, it's enough for a body, okay? Fendarzilling says, even if they wanted, could the parks tell male employees they have to wear male outfits? They could. It's a uniform. They're a job. So they're saying, this is your uniform. You wear the uniform. You can still do that, right? Unless there is a manifest reason why they cannot wear the uniform, right? They've got to give a disability, like I'm missing an arm. Well, in that case, can you modify it to work with, without an arm or whatever, right? But as long as it's not something that's taking advantage of their particular status, they can wear whatever damn uniform they tell them to wear. So if they tell them to wear a uniform, they can make them wear it, right? It's a uniform. That's part of their job. Just like you can make a flight attendant wear a uniform or a Hooters girl wear a uniform. It's a thing. Right? They're actors, right? Or whether they're playing the role, right? That's the whole thing, is they're supposed to be in the role of that person. Ghazni sent $1, proving that Florida man can always sink cheaper. Just when you think that Florida man is paying its cheapest dime, it can go cheaper. If I set it to allow 50 cents, Ghazni would go there because he has no shame. This man has no shame. And that's why I love him. And that's why I bring him on the channel very often. No shame. But anyways, let's remove that for a second. We're going to get into this actual lawsuit. We're talking about law here, not just wokeness, not just craziness. And by the way, so you guys know, I will be doing a video on Thursday night Eastern, which is Friday morning here for me in Bangkok. But I will be doing one with Nina Infinity and a couple other special guests talking about anime alternatives to woke media, including Disney media. So like, for example, woke alternatives to Little Mermaid or alternatives to Little Mermaid and Snow White, right, in anime. So we're going to have a panel. It's going to be really fun, kind of a positive one. A lot of these are negative, but this is going to be a positive one. So I hope everyone can check in for that on Thursday night Eastern, Friday morning. So that is already up. It's scheduled. You can see that live, so you can kind of set your reminders for that one. All right, so let's jump right into this. And Disney is just the gift that keeps on giving, because every time I think that I'm going to run out of content, every time I think, oh, I'm going to have to be milking this, I'm going to have to really stretch it. Nope. Another lawsuit is filed. This one is in federal court for the District of Delaware. So this is a federal lawsuit It is a shareholder lawsuit, and we're going to be going through this complaint. It's 63 pages, maybe not every single word, right? There's some parts where we'll skim, but we're going to get into the meat of it and break it down. This is the only place where you're going to see this. Other people will summarize this, but nobody is going to go through this whole complaint like we will here on this show today. And I also want to say thank you for everybody who's liked the video. We're at 131 likes. If we can get to 200, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. All right. So Stourbridge Investments, they're a shareholder, right? So they're suing on behalf of the nominal defendant, Disney World Company. So as a shareholder lawsuit, what you're doing is you are suing on behalf of the company. So you're saying, I, as a shareholder, I'm suing because you are not doing what's in best interest of the company. You are taking advantage of the company and taking advantage of the shareholders. And so Stourbridge is suing on behalf of those, on behalf of the company as a shareholder. By the way, speaking of shareholders, thank you so much for Ted Park for gifting 10 Legal Mindset memberships. You absolutely are a shareholder in the Legal Mindset. If I could give shareholder status, Ted Park would have it right now. Ted Park has earned shareholder. He is the Nelson Peltz of the Legal Mindset at this point. So thank you so much, Ted Park. Thank you for your support. Thank you for helping turn the chat into a field of green. Chat, make sure when you see the gift pop up, click on accept gift memberships. Make sure you click on that and accept gift memberships. Make sure you have that turned on so you can receive that and turn it into a field of green in this chat. Really, really, really like that. Blue Fire says, hyped for a Weeb stream on Thursday night. Get ready. It's going to be fun. And I'm really excited for that one as well. Castle Moyle Book says, I can beat Ghazni even if I don't have a book about it. Oof, Ghazni. Fighting words. Be careful. Ghazni has meth gators and cocaine sharks. So be very careful. He is a Florida man. He is equipped with all our traditional weapons of war. So he comes equipped with meth gators and cocaine sharks. Forget a cocaine bear. We've got cocaine sharks. It's much better. All right. So who are the defendants here? The defendants are Bobby Chapek. Guys, Bobby Chapek has been really, honestly, in the middle of this BS for a lot of different lawsuits. And I told you that these guys are going to be in for it. So we saw the other shareholder lawsuits against them for relating to Disney Plus, right? So this is just the first of many. People are going to be piling on to Bob Chapek, Kristen McCarthy, Kareem Daniels, Susan Arnold, Mary Barra, Safra Katz, Amy Chang, Francis de Souza, Michael Froman, Bobby Iger. So this is one where Chapek and Iger are included, not just Chapek. So they're both in it because they're suing everybody involved in decision-making. Maria Elena Lengo-Massino, Calvin McDonald, Mark Parker, Derica Rice. So you have all those as defendants and also the company as a nominal defendant, right? Because they're technically suing on behalf of the company as a shareholder, but the company is still a party as well. So just from a procedural standpoint. Bob Johnson says, still around, just lurking lately. Busy. Hey, good. Appreciate you stopping by and dropping a member chat. I love that the member chats are now like showing up. So appreciate you. Appreciate all the OGs like Bob who have been with me and hung out with me since I've been covering Rittenhouse. So appreciate that. And I hope you've enjoyed my coverage of Rittenhouse lately. So appreciate that. All the OGs in the house. All right, so Stourbridge is bringing this derivative action on behalf of Walt Disney Company against certain officers of the company for, number one, violations of the Securities Exchange Act. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we finally have a securities lawsuit, a securities violation, in violation of SEC Rule 10b-5, which includes breach of fiduciary duties, breach of fiduciary duty for insider trading. So this is an insider trading lawsuit. Unjust enrichment, waste of corporate assets. Guys, we can now say Disney is being sued for insider trading. We can say that. It is 100% a fact. It is fantastic. This is great. Plaintiff makes these allegations upon personal knowledge concerning himself in all matters, review and analysis of public filings made by Disney, review and analysis of press releases and publications, review of news articles, shareholder communications, posting on their websites, recording their public statements, and pleadings, papers, documents filed with the SEC and filed in the other lawsuit, the labor lawsuit, the pension fund versus Walt Disney, which is also another securities action. So right now, Disney has 2 securities actions against them. This is the pile-on. Guys, there are going to be more people jumping in. The blood is in the water, right? We have now 2 lawsuits. The blood is in the water. The sharks are coming to feed. Disney has been telling the people that they are not going to be making any money. Disney is saying, hey, we're going to be broke for the next couple years, okay? And people are saying, no, you're not. You promised to pay us money. You promised a dividend. You promised returns. This was not what we were promised. We were not promised to subsidize woke bullshit. They are now suing to get their money. They're like, where's my money? I'm coming for your kneecaps. This is where Disney is at in 2023. So this is what we're talking about from a broader 30,000 foot view. When we're looking at, what's the legal landscape here? Disney is a wounded duck. And you better believe the stakes are out. The lawyers are going to pounce. As Stephen Gilly says, better have that money. All right. So plaintiff brings this act on behalf of Disney, aiming to rectify defendants' violations of the Securities and Exchange Act based on their public filings and proxy statements. So, by the way, this is everything they've said. So pretty much what this says is that Disney has shoved their foot in their mouth. So Disney, by its public statements, has admitted that they've violated securities law. This is where we're at. And this is what I've been saying is Disney has this pure hubris that they cannot be touched, that they're Laffy Taffy, that they just can laugh off all these lawsuits, shrug them off. They cannot. This is mounting legal liability. This is something I think the stock bros are not counting for properly, is all the liability from the aggregate of these lawsuits. So now they're going to give a little bit of history of Disney. Disney was founded by Walt and Roy Disney. We know that. It's in Burbank, California. It's the world's largest entertainment company. We know that. They produce television content. They have theme parks. They do direct-to-consumer video. And here you go. So let's get into these relevant facts. Disney announced that Iger would be stepping down in 2020 with a 15 career after ending a 15-year career. And he was going to end his contract. He had reportedly handpicked Chapek, who'd worked for him for more than a decade. So he had, confidence about that. So a month after Chapek is in, coronavirus breaks out. By the way, isn't that a little fishy? Can we just point that out? 1 month after Iger steps down, Corona comes out. I'm not saying we need to check what Mickey Mouse did with a pangolin. I'm just saying Mickey Mouse may have banged a pangolin. I'm just saying that it may be a factual statement. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm like kind of saying that, hey, we might want to go to Wuhan and search for traces of rat. Because I'm just saying it might be there. All right. So the WHO officially declared it a pandemic. People locked down. Disney did a major reorganization as a result of the pandemic. Disney Plus was a success during the pandemic. So it got a lot of growth during the pandemic because people had nothing to do. They couldn't go anywhere. They issued a press release on this pivot and this based on the success of Disney Plus. They said, in the light of tremendous success achieved to date in the company's direct-to-consumer business, we will further accelerate the DTC strategy. The Walt Disney Company announced a strategic reorganization. Under the new structure, the creative energies will focus on developing original content for the legacy platforms, while the distribution and commercialization activities will be centralized into a single global media entertainment distribution organization. So essentially, the media and distribution will be responsible for all monetization, both distribution and ad sales, and will oversee operations for streaming. It will have a sole P&L accountability, profit and loss accountability for Disney's media entertainment business. So it kind of brought everything together into one Borg body in their eternal accounting. This is a lot of the accounting fuckery that we talked about in their separate lawsuit, that they play around with their numbers, that they padded their numbers, and they did that to make themselves look better. This is something that's been disclosed in other lawsuits, is that Disney was essentially screwing over its partners like TSG, screwing them out of money in order to make their numbers look better. And yes, this is live. Yes, this is live. The reorganization represented a dramatic departure from Disney's historical reporting structure and was hugely controversial because it took power away from the creative content-focused executives and centralized it in a new reporting group led by Kareem Daniel that reported directly to Chapek. Prior to the announcement, it was in 4 different segments: media networks, parks, studio entertainment, and direct-to-consumer international. Chapek made it just 2: Disney Media and Entertainment, and Parks and Experiences and Products. So essentially, it's the parks and the media. That's what Chapek did, which is a big change in condensing, right? So you're putting streaming together with linear networks, which is cable, broadcast, and also together with content sales and licensing. So theatrical releases, home entertainment, third-party subscription video on demand, all that stuff is lumped into one. So they try to cook the books to make streaming look more lucrative than it really is, right? That's their intent, is to make it look better. Also on locals, Bob Johnson says Mickey was just doing the pangolin for some quick cash. That's true. Also for $1, Ron Crossman says, is this live? Yes, we are live, Ron. We are live. Appreciate you and appreciate the trolling. It is definitely live. We're definitely live. And also shout out to everybody else here on Rumble as well. DED became responsible for the monetization of all Disney content globally. So they took over everything. They centralized everything. Critically, DMED was responsible for determining which platform the content will be released on, whether streaming, television, or movies. This is a huge decision because all of these different choices have different financial incentives. So streaming makes more for Disney, but it screws their partners. Television networks might make you a lot of licensing money, right? Traditional movie theaters are kind of a gamble. They can be a big boom or a bust. But there's a lot of strings attached with traditional movie theaters. We've talked about the movie windows. You know, that's something that's very, very much dictating the profitability of your theatrical releases. People like my good friends Valiant Renegade, Mexican Iron Man, they talk about this all the time. And shout out to those guys. I'll obviously be collaborating with these guys to talk about this in the future. Given the incredible success of Disney Plus and our plans to accelerate our direct-to-consumer business, we are strategically positioning our company to more effectively support our growth strategy and increase shareholder value, Chapek said. Managing content creation distinct from distribution will allow us to be effective and nimble in making the content consumers want most, delivered in the way they prefer. Let's be very clear here. Let me remove this for a second. Disney has not been delivering the content that they want, that people want. They've been delivering the content that the DEI boards want, that BlackRock wants, that Vanguard wants. Let me be very, very clear. That's the only thing that they've been delivering. Just to be absolutely 100% clear here. During the relevant period, defendants repeatedly misled investors about the success of the Disney Plus platform. So boom, this is what this is going to be chiefly about, is Disney Plus and lying about Disney Plus, because they have straight up said that they lied about Disney Plus. They've straight up said that. By concealing the true costs of the platform, concealing the expense and difficulty of maintaining robust Disney Plus subscriber growth, and claiming that the platform was on track to achieve profitability and 260 paid global subscribers by the end of fiscal year 2024. This was the lie. They said it was going to be profitable, and they said it was going to boom. Instead, it's dying on the vine. Specifically, they used newly created department to inappropriately shift costs out of the Disney Plus platform and onto legacy platforms. So they did a bunch of internal tricks to make Disney Plus look better than it is. Disney Plus is a huge red mark. It's a skid mark on the balance sheet of Disney. But they're trying to polish that turd into gold. Obviously, okay, this is some legal stuff here. Jurisdiction is the place where you bring the lawsuit. Clearly, there's jurisdiction. It's a federal charge. It's a proper court to bring it in, so that's good. The parties, so the plaintiff has been a shareholder that has continually held shares of common stock, of Disney common stock. That's your ordinary, everyday stock to the present day. The defendant is a California company, Disney World, that is that's traded on NASDAQ under the symbol DIS. You've got Robert Chapek as a defendant. He's the CEO, the former CEO now. You've got Christine McCarthy, who is the chief financial officer. You've got Kareem Daniel, who is the president of Consumer Products, Games Publishing, and chief of staff to the CEO. Kind of the CEO's bitch, if you will. Chapek, McCarthy, and Daniel are collectively referred to as the Securities Action Defendants. Okay, so these guys are the people that are really in trouble for the insider trading, okay? So just to be very clear, these guys are the deep doo-doo squad. So the deep doo-doo squad is Chapek, McCarthy, and Kareem Daniel. Then you've got Susan E. Arnold, who's a member of the board. And on the executive committee, you've got Mary Barra, who's on the board, Safra Katz, who's on the board, Amy Chang, who's on the board, Francis de Souza, who's on the board, Mike Foreman, who's on the board, and Bobby Iger, who was the CEO, chairman of the board, an executive. Now he's back, of course. You've got Maria Langobasino, who's a member of the board as well, Calvin McDonald, a member of the board, Mark Parker, member of the board, Derica Rice, member of the board. So these guys are the director defendants, right? So all of these guys, Arnold, Barra, Katz, Chang, De Souza, Froman, Iger, Langobasino, McDonald, Parker, Rice, are the director defendants. So all of them, the directors, along with the security actions, are referred to as the individual defendants. Disney, along with the individuals, referred to as defendants. These are kind of lumping them together, right? So there was fiduciary duties. So a fiduciary duty is a duty that you have. It's not a duty as in a giant mouse dropping. It is a duty that you have to others. So when you are running a company as the CEO, as a board member, you have fiduciary duties. You have a duty to look out for the best interest of the company, right? So you have a duty to do that. So you have a duty to say, okay, what is the best thing for Disney? And if you don't do that, you are breaching what's called their fiduciary duty. So here's the duty. They're required and owe the company a duty of trust, loyalty, good faith, due care, and required to use their utmost ability to control and manage Disney in a fair, just, honest, and equitable manner. Now I know, hold on, let's stop right here. I know you saw the word equity, and I know you may be scared. Equity has a different meaning under the law. It's not the woke meaning of equity. It means in an impartial manner in terms of dealing with the different parties, the different interested parties in the company. So that means in a fair way towards the employees, the shareholders, the board members, the CEO. Everybody has to be treated on a fair basis. You have to balance those interests. You can't screw over the shareholders to benefit the woke agenda of your CEO. That's breaching a duty. There's a duty not to do that. You can't do it at the expense of the shareholder, particularly when there's another option, and particularly when there's an option to do it legally. You never have the ability to do something illegally. That's not on the table. So just so I want to say, we're taking back the word equity here for the purpose of this lawsuit. They were required to act in the best interest of Disney and its shareholders. So all the shareholders benefit equally and not in the furtherance of a personal interest or benefit. This is all personal interest or benefit. And yes, they are absolutely screwed here. So they had the ability to look over their financial statements, to maintain a system of internal controls. This is like Mexican Iron Man gold here. Like Mexican Iron Man is getting like a fiduciary chubby talking about this. To maintain compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. That's what I would do when I was in-house counsel. I made sure that they were in line legally and regulatory in the regulatory world. That's where I was. And by the way, Disney is fully out of line here. And I've been covering that on this channel for the past year, that Disney has been out of line with both laws and regulation because they think they're above the law. They think they're above regulation. Whiskey77, member for 1 month, says 1995 called and they want their headphones back. These are balling. Love my gold headphones. They're balling. They need to maintain independent auditors. Remember, we talked about this. PricewaterhouseCoopers has been on the inside since the 1930s. They do their internship there. Actually, ironically, this is hilarious. So after I had that stream with Mexican Iron Man the other day, I was, over here in Bangkok, and I was talking to a lovely young lady, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I'm an accountant, and I did my internship with Disney back in the day, with PricewaterhouseCoopers and Disney back in the day." And I go, "Oh really?" And they go, "Oh yeah, they pretty much make you feel like you're a Disney employee, right?" Is that an independent auditor? Is that an independent auditor? If they're bringing you in-house and they're pretty much making you feel as if you're on the par with the Disney employee. This is exactly the type of thing that they got in trouble with our CID, making them think they're Disney employees, right? 100%. So I see this happening with both their lawyers and their accountants. It's happening in all fields. Mexican Iron Man has been a member for 15 months. I said, "I think this lawsuit is turning me on more than my last date after 3 tequila shots." Just saying. Hey, listen, salute. We're going in on this one. I may end up cracking this whiskey back here. If we get to, let's see, what are you at right now? We're 800 people watching. If we get to 500 likes, I will take a shot. I'll just fight from the bottle. We go straight from the top. Because it's just that time today. All right. So they're also required to review the accounting and reporting treatment of significant transactions, report any issues that are violations of GAAP or that are not doing things that are standard according to accounting practices, to work with the independent auditors, to meet in private with management, to review press releases, to review quarterly financial statements. So to review all the documents, they had a job to make sure the documents were square, right? The problem is that in their own documents, Disney was admitting to violating securities law, to violating regulatory law. They've been doing that. I've been talking about how they're doing that in Florida with this stance regarding Reedy Creek. What they're doing is violating Florida law and violating regulatory law related to bonds in Florida. They've been just doing that openly. Now they're doing that related to securities in their financial statements as applied to Disney Plus. Stuart Nielsen says, lawsuit porn for the win. Absolutely. We are always going in on these lawsuits, and I love it. I love going in on these complaints and kind of getting into the meat of the complaint. Because this is the meat. This is the beef. When I say, where's the beef? It's right here. It's right here. So I absolutely love this. Love these lawsuits. Okay, so they had to review their policies to make sure they're in compliance with legal, ethical, and conflict of interest standards. Do you think they did that? Nope. They had to review for fraud, conflict of interest, misconduct. They had to review for litigation. They had to disclose litigation. Did they properly disclose their litigation? I don't think so. Hunch for $50 says, how about now? I know you can be bribed. Take a shot. You want to. I'm an easy man, Hunch. I'm an easy man. Listen, for 50, for my man riding out a hurricane in Florida. If you're willing to ride out a hurricane in Florida and drop your boy $50, I'm willing to take some monkey shoulders straight from the bottle. So, hey, cheers to you, Hunch the Dirty Roofer. Appreciate you. Appreciate your support of this channel. Laheim. And I will, cheers. Cheers. Woo! Good stuff. Put some hair on the chest. Get this. I'll just keep this within arm's reach, okay? I'll just keep this within arm's reach here. It takes a certain type of guy to be able to review a legal complaint tipsy. All right. And by the way, it's 9 in the morning, guys. It's 9 in the morning here, so you understand. They also had a duty to review any data security risks and also establish procedures for complaints and for confidential anonymous submission by employees of the company regarding questionable accounting and auditing. This is for whistleblowing. They had to set up a whistleblowing procedure. There's a lot of whistles to be blown at Disney. A lot of whistles to be blown at Disney, for sure. Duties pursuant to the company's code of ethics. So they had all these ethical duties, right? These are the board members. They had all these duties. So they had a duty to represent the interests of shareholders, maintain high standards of integrity, commitment, and independence of thought, to dedicate time, energy, and attention to performance of their duties, to comply with every provision of the code, to avoid conflicts of interest, like receiving loans or guarantees, like engaging in any conduct that improperly interferes with the company's existing or prospective business relations with a third party. Guys, this duty right here, this task, they violated this with TSG. So remember TSG, the financier? They screwed them over. They had a deal with Fox. They acquired Fox. They had a duty to respect those contracts. And they said, you know what? We're actually going to screw you over in favor of Disney Plus. We're going to screw you out of money. That's what they did with TSG. And now the shareholders here are saying, wait, we were screwed out of money too. We could have made more money by staying in these licensing agreements instead of going over into these crazy Disney Plus schemes, right? So they also can't accept bribes or kickbacks. They also can't accept a member of the immediate family gifts or deal with them, and generally avoid conflicts of interest, right? So not competing with the company, complying with laws, making sure that if they suspect any violations, they report them, right? So these are all duties of the board. And speaking of a member who perhaps is not a member of the board, but is a member of the board of my heart. Maybe not of Disney, but of my heart. It's Million Renegade. How you doing, brother? Hold on, here we go. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. No bibbity bobbity boop in this. This is just all straight appreciation for your hard work here. And,
no bippity boppity boop, and then emphasis on the straight when making that reference.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. We're keeping this Florida. We're keeping that Florida Disney World, not California Adventure Time. You know.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So we're going through this suit here, and we're just getting into this Valiant, right? Just jumping into this. But as we go into it, and one thing I wanted to bring you on is, before we get into more of the beef and the charges, what do you think about just the procedural posturing, the parties? Do you have any thoughts about, just the folks that are bringing this and the fact that we're seeing a shareholder lawsuit brought at this time?
Well, to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Stourbridge Investments. Basically anybody that represents clients or is a mutual fund company, a hedge fund, an institutional, anybody that's a stockholder can bring a suit, right, for virtually any reason. The question becomes, is it a valid reason? Certainly there are some interesting claims here with this suit in terms of they're basically crying shenanigans, right, when it comes to how Disney did their accounting for the actual costs of the launch and then ongoing management of Disney Plus streaming services. And this is something that has been a problem for really all the streaming services, save for maybe Netflix, because Netflix being a bit more unique in the sense that it is It's not a content creator, or at least it wasn't originally. It's not a studio that created a streaming service as a proprietary in-house distribution system. It's just a distribution system that was created. And then they acquired content from other people. Now, of course, Netflix since then has made its own content, but this is Disney, right?
Right.
And at the time that Disney Plus was launched, and this is what I want everybody watching out there to really understand from the financial world.
Yes.
When a company decided to go into streaming at that point, the perception of investors and Wall Street was that they're now a streaming company. It didn't matter what else they were doing. They were now in competition with Netflix. That was the perception. And there was this hardcore pounding on the table from Wall Street, from investors and everybody out there. How many subs you got? How many subs you got? Did you get more subs this quarter? How many more subs this quarter did you get? How many subs you got? I mean, that was it for years. The end-all, be-all was the chase and the worshiping at the almighty altar of the subscriber. Well, of course, I was skeptical of that early on. I was skeptical of that for a while. I've talked about it on YouTube, saying that eventually people on Wall Street are going to wake up to the fact that there has to be a value proposition here, meaning that you can't just chase a bunch of subscribers for the sake of chasing subs. There's got to actually be some monetary gain here. There's got to be some positive return, some positive OI or operating income. Well, they started realizing that, wow, we've got all these subs and we're losing our ass.
It's a vanity metric. It's like, that's why I tell people it's almost like YouTube, stupid. Right? It's almost like YouTube, right? Like you could, if you told me, oh, this channel has 1 million subscribers, I'm like, cool story, bro. How many views do they have in their videos, right? Because if I have 2 million subscribers, but 1,000 people watch a video, it doesn't matter, right? Because
you've got jack squat. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's
you've got a good foundation, but the foundation isn't actually feeding a return on all of that CapEx, that capital expenditure that you've put into it. So we talk about all the time in the case of like this lawsuit, we've covered, Disney's progression, Warner Brothers progression, Paramount, Peacock, all these other places, Netflix. How are things going with these things? Now, Disney, of course, tends to be much more of a focus because they can't get themselves out of the news ever.
No, in Valiant, like every time I think that, I'm not even having to invent this. I'm not having to milk anything. There is new legal news about Disney every single couple days. I'm actually downgrading from weekly to like every 3 to 4 days. There's a major scandal or lawsuit or update. I never thought I would be able to have nonstop Disney legal coverage. Like, oh, I'm just going to cover Disney's legal woes. Like, and that's all I'm going to have time to do. I don't have time. I can do 1 stream a day, right? I don't have time to do more than that, right? And now this week I've been back to back between the criminal investigation that was coming against them, the TSG lawsuit, this lawsuit. It's been really nonstop, which is fantastic. And look, hey, I'll take it to the bank, but this just shows what stage they're in. The blood is in the water.
Yeah.
People smell it. They're coming for them. They're onto their bullshit. And people are waking up to it. They're finding your channel, my channel, and they're like, hey, wait a second. Yeah, we need to sue on this. People
they're looking at things like, how did you get $14 billion in the hole, right, with Disney Plus? And I wish, for the life of me, I've got to go back and find this eventually. Maybe I'll put Jonas on it. If you're watching, help me with this, buddy. I've got to go back and find. There was
let me give you some homework here.
There was an earnings call for Disney that one of the questions that came up, I can't remember who from. It was during a Q&A. Sure. It was at least a year ago now. Sure. Where somebody asked, as Disney Plus was reaching peak losses, we're talking 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 billion dollars in losses in a quarter, in a fiscal quarter.
Losing billions of dollars per quarter, losing and knowing that you're losing.
That's a cruise ship. Right? That is one Disney cruise ship per quarter.
That's like Disney Plus. Imagine Disney Plus is like a U-boat, and it's like torpedoing cruise ships, just like you're just sinking cruise ships.
That's it.
Off the coast of the U.S. Just like you're just dropping them. That's the equivalent of what you're doing here per quarter.
There was a question, Andrew, that came up during one of those calls about a year plus ago. And I thought it was brilliant. I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's what I thought. And the question was, we don't really understand this. This is from like the analyst. You know, we thought when Disney Plus launched, and I'm very much paraphrasing here, but the gist of the question was, we thought that Disney's content library was far more than robust enough to garner a ton of subscriptions on its own. Meaning that, you know, you had 80 years of Disney content and all this other stuff that you've acquired that could go on to Disney Plus. In other words, that you wouldn't have to spend billions and tens of billions of dollars creating all of this brand new proprietary Disney Plus only content. And one of the things that I find most telling, I did a video, a couple of videos today on Ahsoka, on the numbers for that. I recorded a video before I came here, which is why I was a little late, talking about these two new cancellations for Disney with Spiderwick and Nautilus. And talking about, this is the point. They've spent a ton of money on all this stuff, and maybe with the exception of something like The Mandalorian, which launched Disney Plus, a lot of it has really not moved the needle. We've literally seen Disney Plus subscribers since Mandalorian Season 2 premiered, for example, increase by 50% in North America, going from 30 million subs to 45 million subs. And since the premiere of Mando Season 2, the average viewership of Star Wars and Marvel content has declined precipitously.
Ahsoka's not going to save it. Ahsoka's not going to save everything. It's not going to turn everything around.
Lowest rated Star Wars show to date, tying with Andor.
That's bad. That's real bad. That's real bad. I mean, that was
Disney. Did you see the spin Disney put out today?
What's the spin now?
Oh,
is it racism?
Disney
is it racism?
No. Disney has never, ever in the history of Disney Plus put out a press release about what the viewership was for a Disney Plus show. They did today with Ahsoka. After the news came out from Samba, where it put it at the bottom of the barrel, Disney did a press release on the Star Wars, official Star Wars page saying Ahsoka was the highest or the most viewed show on Disney Plus globally in the week that it premiered, with 14 million views.
So like
that's
this one?
A fraction of what happened with things like Rings of Power, Game of Thrones, and all this kind of stuff.
Was it like this one here?
Congratulations, Ahsoka, you beat Bluey.
Is this it? Is this the one here? Like,
that's it.
Okay, yeah. It's like, oh, good job. Like, you got a first episode. But once again, a lot of people are willing to check something out in the beginning. The question is, like, tell me what your second episode viewership is, right?
Well, they dropped 2 episodes concurrently. But here's the thing. The problem, 14 million views globally over the course of the week.
Nothing. That's so nothing.
That's poo.
That is.
This is Ahsoka. Ahsoka should have been. This is one of the most popular characters that Star Wars has had in the modern Star Wars era. Like, for the folks that grew up with the prequel trilogy as opposed to the OG trilogy, like I did or like you did, like Ahsoka was one of those big things that came out with Rebels and Clone Wars, which I watched. I loved. I'm a big Ahsoka fan. Like, from the standpoint of the character, I really did like her.
But it's a different character. Honestly, the character they're playing, this like stoic, like let-in character, is not really the Ahsoka.
I did
from the
not
other one.
expect this show to be this, like the ratings to be this bad. So this is kind of one of those things that this
same with all the other characters from Rebels and Clone Wars and all that stuff. Like, those characters were more three-dimensional. They're so one-dimensional here. It's not even recognizable. And look, I wasn't a huge fan, but like the clips I saw from the animated shows versus now, it's not recognizable. The characters are not recognizable.
They're not. And this is the kind of thing, getting back to the lawsuit, the reason I bring this up, this is the sort of issue, is this cost benefit analysis. How is Disney spending $200 to $250 million on each one of these kind of big headline shows from Marvel and Star Wars, and the returns they're getting are poop? I mean, poop. Netflix can put out a $50 million docudrama every Friday and get better numbers than this trash. That's the problem. That's the big problem. I mean, these things don't sustain, and investors, some investors, which have decided to file a class action suit, are alleging that
Yeah.
Disney
And
was concealing things by shifting costs around to linear broadcasts.
we're right about to get
writing
into
off.
that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like, this is kooky.
It is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. By the way, crazy is Kiss My Grits and American Legend, both of y'all becoming members of the Base Legal Mindset and the Replay Gang.
Indeed.
Appreciate you. Base Legal Mindset's obviously my highest level, my best supporters. So thank you so much for joining at that level.
Do you know Grits? Have you met him before?
In person?
Well, not in person, but I mean, have you seen Grits on your channel?
Yeah, before? On my channel. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah, definitely been a good supporter of my channel.
Good friends with us, and been a actually popped on our Sunday live show with us on the big panel.
We'll appreciate y'all supporting everybody's channel, because literally we all work together like this. Valiant is here texting me at 8 o'clock in the morning.
It's 8 o'clock at night for me, bro.
7 a.m., whatever. He's like, hey, baby, wake up. We got work to do.
Wink,
it's
wink,
like,
nudge,
I'm like,
nudge.
all right. I'll do the laundry and I'll do a video. Don't worry, I'm on it. But anyways, appreciate you, Kiss My Grits. American Legend, appreciate you too. House of Tradies says, at this point, the pop culture channels really need to have one positive non-Disney pop culture show bi-weekly. I'm at Shitty Disney Overload. Actually, that's why my next show, which we're doing with Nina, not tomorrow, but the next day, so Thursday night Eastern, is anime alternatives to woke Disney. So it's going to be very positive, very like, here's things you can watch that are not woke Disney, that are not woke media, right? So it's going to be positive, good vibes only, very nice. You said bi-monthly, not bi-weekly. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think
just stop saying bye.
Well, listen, if we could go back to if we go back to B instead of T, I'll take that trade. I'll trade the B for the T. I'll just say any day, especially with the ladies. That being said, let's get right back into it with this complaint, because right now we're getting into the facts. This next couple pages, we're getting into the juicy deets about what they said. And oftentimes these statements we're going to see in the next couple pages are things you probably heard live listening to this guy when he did the earnings call. So a lot of the statements you're going to see in this are from the earnings call. That's why it's important for you guys to tune into these calls, because literally it's always an adventure of what did Bob Chapek, or used to be Bob Chapek, now Bob Iger, what did Bob Iger say that's going to be used in a lawsuit against him?
Well, to be fair, Andrew, Chapek was named in the suit too. So
no, he is. Yeah. He is, right? So
this could have been either one of them.
But going into the future, it's Iger, right? So we can look forward to Iger's statements. This is looking back at where Bob Chapek screwed up. So, all right. So defendants made representations that the initial subscribers had been boosted temporarily and they made representations notwithstanding, so meaning regardless of the fact that the initial numbers were boosted temporarily and unsustainably by a low launch price of $6.99. Additionally, on top of those promotions, there was a near captive audience who were homebound due to COVID-19. They literally were out here watching, they're done watching Tiger King and they are desperate. They're thirsty for content. So on top of that, they had competitors with Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Paramount Plus, HBO Max, YouTube, Peacock. Disney was never able to track 2024 profitability and subscriber numbers provided to investors, and such estimates lacked a reasonable basis in fact. So saying that their projections, their glossy projections, their projections of 260 million subscribers and profitability, those were rosy because they didn't take into account those facts. So despite that, defendants engaged in a fraudulent scheme to hide the extent of Disney Plus losses and the growth trajectory to make it appear to be achievable when it wasn't. They did this by using the newly created merged department. So by merging the departments to shift costs out of Disney Plus and onto legacy platforms. So it's cable media, traditional licensing, third-party agreements, to shift those costs out of Disney Plus. So just take whatever's in the Disney Plus, loss side and shift it out.
Yep, that's what they call DMED. Now, there were other reasons that they did that. We can talk about that in a minute, but keep going.
Sure, but that's what they're alleging here, right? So they're saying that was done under the direction of Chapek, Daniel, and Carthy, right? So they all knew about it.
Yep, Chapek, Kareem Daniel, Christine McCarthy.
And they debuted content created for Disney Plus initially on legacy platforms in order to shift marketing and production costs onto that platform. So they would launch it on legacy real quick, and then shift those costs over when really it was something that was intended for Disney Plus. Really, it was a Disney Plus item, right?
Mm-hmm.
As part of the scheme, Disney Plus's financial performance appeared more successful than it was. Defendants aired certain shows that were supposed to be Disney Plus originals, such as the mystery show, The Mysterious Benedict Society, and the medical drama Doogie Kamealoha MD, right?
Yes, it's a Doogie Howser. It was the woke version of Doogie. It was never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It sounds like a giant Doogie, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a significant portion of the production of these shows was shifted away from Disney Plus. Despite the cost shifting, defendants repeatedly represented during the relevant period that this was best for customer preferences and for the business. So they were saying this is what the business is best for business, right? We're doing this for the business. We're doing this for you guys, right? So here comes the false and misleading statements. These are the public statements. So on December 10th, there was an Investor Day presentation. So this was intended to update investors about the business and its strategies. So Chapek at this meeting made this statement about Disney Plus and the subscribers. He said, and I quote, Disney Plus, let me zoom in here because this is of such bullshit. Disney Plus has exceeded our wildest expectations with 86.8 million subscribers as of December 2nd. That's quite the achievement. This success has bolstered our confidence in the continued acceleration towards a DTC first business model, direct to consumer. That means pretty much streaming.
Yep.
And more importantly, it's launched the Walt Disney Company into a new era of delivering consumers into truly exceptional entertainment built around our world-renowned brand and franchises. So obviously, it's bullshit that this is exceeding expectations. This is great. Obviously, it's not as great as it should be to achieve profitability. Further, he went on and said, and I'll just read the bolded part because there's a lot of statements here. As circumstances change, we will continue to consider these and other critical factors when determining what steps we may take to most efficiently distribute our programming. Our goal is always to serve consumers in the best way possible, right? So saying they're going to look at the data, they're going to look at customer preferences, they're going to look at what audiences want. To be honest, Valiant, is Disney really giving a shit about what audiences want and what the people want? Have they been focusing on that as a core consideration over the past 2-3 years?
From a content and production standpoint, no. But one of the things, to be fair, with what Chapek was referring to when he created DMED with Kareem Daniel, Disney Media Entertainment Distribution, was not so much about exactly what kind of content that we will create. I think that was coming down the pike, and I even talked about that on YouTube many times. But in the beginning, it was more about how a certain product or piece of content would then be distributed. So removing the power from the studio heads to decide, this is going to go to the theater, this is how much we're going to spend marketing, this is how, no, it was going to go to the singular department to decide, okay, we're going to greenlight this project, but we're going to decide how much is going to be spent to market this and where it's going to go. And the studio heads, of course, did not like that. There was a lot of conflict, and that's one of the biggest impetuses that basically got Chapek forced out the door as time went on. But in terms of the specific, let me address the shows they bring up in the suit. Those two things, the Disney Hauser,
two specific shows,
those are very small potatoes.
Of course. I like the fact that we hadn't really heard of them implies they're small potatoes, right?
Small potato budget, small potato productions. Again, these were not headline $200 million monsters that came out of Marvel and Star Wars. These were the, if you break it down to singular cost for a given show, those are the 800-pound gorillas in the room, right?
Right.
Certainly they spent a lot of money elsewhere for streaming, and that's the other thing, is that they never really broke out when they said, okay, this is our DTC losses for a given quarter. So when we lost at Disney, $1.4 billion, third or fourth fiscal quarter last year, whenever it was. I think it was that worst one where Chapek got exited out like 2 weeks after the earnings call on November 8th. They didn't say, well, $1 billion of this came from Disney Plus, $100 million of this came from Hulu, and $300 million came from ESPN Plus. We don't know. Now, we can speculate with relative accuracy that the lion's share, and I do mean the overwhelming lion's share of those losses, probably stem from Disney Plus. Okay? Hulu is probably actually very profitable for Disney. If it wasn't, Disney would not be tripping over themselves right now to get the balance sheet in order to make sure that they can affect the put that Comcast has on
Hulu.
On Hulu.
Yeah, right now that's the scramble, right? That's the scramble for money is to cover that, right? Because they're going to have to borrow. So like, let's come up with every penny. So we know we're going to have to borrow, but so we have to borrow less, or we can leverage it at a better rate, or we can get a better interest rate, right? So like, obviously people will be willing to lend them more if they have more cash on hand and more free cash flow. So obviously that's been their priority. But my priority was getting to 500 likes. And I said I'd take a shot if we got there. We had 1,000 viewers and 500 likes. So appreciate that so much. Thank you. 558. Let's see if we can get to 600, 700. But anyways, this is the one I owed you. So cheers, Laheim. And also big shout out to all those people in Florida that are surviving the hurricane right now. That are there, braving it out. Cheers, you guys. I'm from Miami, Florida. I have lived through many tropical storms and hurricanes. Stay bunkered down, stay inside. Floridians know how to deal with hurricanes. Cheers, guys.
There you go. And folks, thank you for being here. Yeah, we get almost 600 likes now, getting closer. Keep hitting it. If you have not hit the thumbs up button yet, do that. We appreciate you being here. Over 1,000 watching now. Yep. I did share it out. Be like Valiant. Share it out to Twitter and Facebook. Share it out. If you have a YouTube channel, I shared it out on my YouTube channel too, getting all my people here. But please hit the like button and share it out. We appreciate it. And there you go. Over 600.
And you're not going to get this. You're not going to get this anywhere else. You're not going to get legal financial combo tag team against Izzy. This doesn't exist anywhere else on the internet in the world. Nobody's doing this. Nobody's being honest about this. We've been the guys who've been on this for the last year. We've been hammering this, right? Valiant was the one, and we've been, talking about this, and it's been insane to see this blowing up and these stories blow up, particularly in the last couple months. And by the way, guys, strap in because we are not at the end of this crazy train. This is just the beginning of the crazy train.
That was strap in, not strap on. I know in this day and age we have to delineate between the two.
Not Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. This is not available at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. They're not doing that. What they're doing there. I'll read this one. Kiss My Grit says, given this lawsuit in the RCID criminal investigation, I assume you meant RCID, can we expect at least one Disney exec to be thrown in the indictment, rat poo, or escape by? I think they'll get deposed. I definitely think the execs are going to get deposed, right? So that means they're going to be, they're definitely going to be questioned. I think the former lawyer, the chief counsel, I think he's going to be really on the line because there's a lot of proof there that he was double dealing with both Disney and RCID, that he was actually working for both, taking money for both. That is a ethical breach in addition to potential legal breach. So there's a lot of potential issues there. So in terms of people on Disney's line, there's potential, there's real potential there. We'll see how deep the rat's nest goes, but I think it's pretty deep. So that's my thought there. Troy Neenan says, what about Contagion? These board members and their companies must know a lot about this. BlackRock, Vanguard, MasterCard. Thoughts? What are your thoughts on Contagion?
Look, I know it's real popular out there to every time something goes wrong, especially with Disney, is like bring up the BlackRock name and Vanguard. I get it. Look, I get it. They're easy targets, right? Because they are the biggest shareholders. If you go down the line, you've got, now Vanguard is the biggest for Disney now. BlackRock dropped back to second place some months ago. But then you got BlackRock, you got State Street, and then on down the line. And of course, look, these same companies own big pieces of most of the Fortune 500 company out there. They manage tens of trillions of dollars of assets for clients around the world. But the fact of the matter is, look, This is on Disney at the end of the day. It really is. And again, this is one of these things. And my perspective is this, as I kind of alluded to earlier. Part of the problem, and this is where I think this would, to be fair, because I always try to be fair. If I'm defending Disney, I would probably bring up the fact that I'm like, look, all you guys out there, y'all investors, the Wall Street people, what were y'all demanding? Subs at all costs. Well, we gave you subs at all costs, right? We went out there and we spent buku money, which they have, to acquire the subscribers that they have. Did they try to do some effective cost mitigation and management by, releasing something on FX or not FX, but FX is one of them. Used to be ABC Family. Freeform, which used to be ABC Family. Like some of the shows they mentioned. We're going to release those on linear concurrently with Disney Plus or slightly ahead of Disney Plus so we can allocate marketing costs and some of the production costs over here so not everything goes on the Disney Plus credit card. Well, it's not like Disney concealed the costs. I mean, they just took the costs in a different bucket.
The costs were okay. Yeah. So what you're trying to say is it's not like they're hiding the cost, but they move the cost to a different bucket. But that does, when you present information, you kind of have a duty of candor, right? Essentially,
right. I'm playing devil's advocate for Disney right now.
I get right? And by the way, I appreciate that as a lawyer. Like, I appreciate devil's advocate. People often give to me, "Hey, you don't devil's advocate strong enough for them." So I actually do appreciate that. So what you're trying to say is, okay, maybe they didn't fail to disclose it, but here's the thing: you have a material misrepresentation. So like, that's what they're suing on, is there's a misrepresentation here, which is what
that's what has to go to the court of law. Let's figure out, let's see what a jury says if it gets that far, which it won't.
Well, it'll settle. Yeah, it'll settle before then. But what it's saying is like, hey, these are enough facts to bring a case. These are definitely enough facts to bring a case. So I'm going to read the bolded text here. So as Bob mentioned, consumer behavior really does drive our decision making. We always wanted to value data gained through our numerous consumer touch points. The valuable growth of our portfolio of DTC, direct-to-consumer, provides us with an even greater opportunity to understand their preferences. As we use these insights to help determine how to optimally engage with our audience. Our team uses all the information available in determining how best to allocate our creative content budget across all platforms with the goal to maximize audience engagement and commercial impact. I'm calling bullshit. I do not think that that's been their goal, to maximize audience engagement and commercial impact. I think that, frankly, and this is something I've been on, I think they've got a more specific message that they're pushing through, but that's not necessarily the most commercially impactful. But that's my 2 cents. But let me read it back here. Since streaming has become the preferred method of consumption, let's stop there for a second, Valiant. Just real quick, like one short answer here, lightning round. Is streaming the preferred method of consumption nowadays? Is that true or not?
Yes. In terms of the largesse of audiences. And I say that, again, the short answer is yes. The reasoning behind it is, if you look at physical media sales and consumption, if you look at the number of people actually still going to the theater, which I have a video I've been working on now for a week. I just keep getting new stories and it keeps getting pushed back. You can see that has dwindled substantially. People are more apt to just on the go. They're looking at their cell phone. They're looking at their iPad. They're on their computer, or even if they're sitting home in their living room on the TV, they're pulling up streaming on Roku, on Amazon Fire Stick, on an Apple TV box, like I have 6 of or whatever.
So here's the follow-up. So you're saying the answer is yes, but it's not necessarily the most profitable, correct?
It is it is the least profitable for sure right now.
So it is
like, so inarguably.
So there's a disconnect here, right?
Yeah.
So one might believe that saying it's the preferred method means it's the most profitable, but not necessarily, right? Because like I said, because the plethora of options, because people view themselves having many options, and there are many options, right? It's a lowest bidder sort of scenario. It isn't necessarily the most profitable for the platform. So what they say is, so going from that, we're prioritizing direct to consumer in both in terms of how we distribute our content and through increased investment in our original programming of Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, and Star branded international general entertainment offering. One of the benefits is our ability to quickly reevaluate and adjust our plans in light of changes in the marketplace. And we will shift and optimize our mix of window, theatrical, day-to-day, and D2C, direct-to-consumer exclusive offerings for what is best for our consumer in the business. So then he said they're going to provide guidance for fiscal year 2024 to be consistent with the time frame we guided at our last investor day. Let me start by saying what you heard today is they've got 86.8 million total paid subscribers, approximately 30% of which are Disney Hotstar, which should ding a bell here because, as you said, Valiant, correct me if I'm wrong, but Hotstar ain't worth shit. It is, pennies on the dollar.
Disney Hotstar, for those of you watching, is the Disney India streaming system. And that has been losing subscribers like bonkers in the last 6 months. That's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. The reason they have lost, I think to date now, maybe 15 million subs on Hotstar in the last 6 months or somewhere around there, is because that Disney decided not to renew the streaming rights to the IPL, the Cricket League in India. This Hotstar acquisition came from the Fox deal in 2019. And while Disney does still hold, they won the broadcast rights for, I think, $3 billion. They won the broadcast rights in India, which is a much bigger footprint. Okay, it's like 10 times the number of households that streaming can reach. Because, of course, think of India. Most of it's very rural. How much of India really has high-speed internet that can deliver Hotstar?
But even that, how much can pay for more than, once again,
that's the other thing.
Is a very huge limiter.
The ARPU, or the average revenue per user for Disney Hotstar in India, is like 75 cents a month.
Guys, that's like significant there.
It's a tenth of what it is in the U.S. A tenth. So if they lose every sub they have in India, honestly, Disney Plus is probably better off. But this is what they're getting at in some of this. But again, you have to take a step back. Even though we love to rail on Disney, we got to be fair and call balls and strikes. And this is one of those things to where, and I've said this for a long time. I said if Hotstar fell off the face of the earth tomorrow for Disney, it's like
but at the same time, for example, here's the issue is that so they're using that 40% were Hotstar, right? So they knew that, and at their investor day in 2020. They gave that same estimate of 260 million, which was three times as profitable and as large as their prior estimate, right, of subscribers, without any degradation in expected profitability. So saying it should be just as profitable.
That's where they may get in trouble, right?
That's where they screwed up.
Because
where they screwed up.
If they really didn't stipulate the fact that, well, a third of those subscribers are going to come from a country that we're not going to make a red frickin' cent on, which basically is Disney Hotstar. They're effectively losing money. Then that could be an issue.
And let's look at this here too, because this actually points into the shill media and Disney statement. So they had this investor day, right? So they talk about this. It's all about balance. It's about following the consumer as they make the tradition. That's why we did the reorganization. That's why to ensure we've got a flexible organization, whether it's a cessation of COVID or it's changing consumer behavior, that we can very nimbly make decisions going forward. So look at what the titles came out of this. The Disney shill media, right? They had a report that was expectations blown away. DTC guidance blows past consensus expectations. Morgan Stanley to infinity and beyond. Right? RBC Capital Market. Disney. Can't you see? Sometimes your word just hypnotized me. That's a throwback right there. That's a real throwback for some.
This was back when Wall Street they didn't know. how to do anything. I mean, when it came to streaming,
By the way,
was subs. All they
stock
knew was
price,
subs.
Stock price over 180 per share. Where are we at today, Valiant? Where are we at today? 83.
Well, take the 1 off the front of that.
Yeah,
and you're about
Let's
there.
bump the 1. Let's knock the 1 off.
I mean, it was at about at 200 at one point.
Yeah,
so,
it almost poked 200. It was like 190s. I think was like the.
But again, that's what I'm talking
mark.
about. That was the Wall Street exuberance at that point because, oh my God, they got so many subscribers so fast, and it's like they have no idea what is the actual operating income from this versus reality, and that's what we all found out later. And it's like, okay, well, they have all these subs, and yet quarter after quarter after quarter following that, they're still reporting $billion+ losses.
So here's it. So it starts with 2021. So that's that proxy they talk about. They talk about the 2021 proxy, right? And what was contained within that. So we go down here. Within that proxy, they found there were false and misleading statements because it failed to disclose adverse effects pertaining to their business. For example, that they were suffering declining or decelerating subscriber growth. Decelerating, right? So slowing down. There were losses. There were cost overruns. There was not disclosing the true costs incurred in connection with Disney Plus because they were debuting certain content intended for Disney Plus on legacy distribution. So we talked about that. Because DMD made platform distribution decisions not based on customer preference and customer behavior or desire to maximize the audience, but desire to hide the full cost of building Disney Plus content library. So for Disney Plus itself, that's the allegation. Obviously, like you said, they got to argue that in the court of law. They have to prove that. But then going further, saying that they weren't on track, based on the pacing that they knew internally, they were not going to make their 2024 Disney Plus subscriber and profitability goals, and that those were not achievable, and there was no reasonable basis to believe they would get there, right? And you put all those things together, that's a material misrepresentation, right? So that's a proxy in 2021. So even as of 2021, making misrepresentations on potential profitability. And they actually doubled down on this in the first quarter of 2021, saying, "Hey, we made this estimate of profitability by fiscal year 2024. We're not going to change that." That's a statement by McCarthy. So
and that was a big thing. And I mean, a lot of Wall Street recently was asking, okay, like in this last earnings call, are they going to reaffirm this goal of profitability by EOY 24, which would be September 30th of next year? And will they also reaffirm this goal of 220 to 260 million global subs? Or will they readjust that guidance? I mean, that was a big thing. Now, the big thing they're looking for at this point, obviously, because they've learned, meaning Wall Street has learned, is profitability. It's like, you know what, at this point, honestly, who gives a shit if you have 150 million subs or 250 million subscribers?
Like you said,
are you making money? Because if you're making money at 150 million subs and you're very profitable, but if you're losing your ass at 250, I'll take the 150 all day and twice on Sunday.
I'll take the 50. Once again, it's profitability, it's number of views. And also, right now, we've got 1,000 live viewers, guys, and we've got right now 711. Let's see if we can get another 10, another 100. Let's get to 800
we can get to 800.
Likes. We can definitely get to 800 here.
We went from 500 something to 700 something real quick because we asked people to hit the button. So we're going to ask people to hit the button again right now. And also, if you haven't hit the button yet, hit the button and share.
I'm going to thank Marcus Squintus for the 10 Legal Mindset memberships. Appreciate that, guys. Make sure you have it turned on in your to accept those memberships.
Big Valiant Renegade fan right there.
It's very appreciated. Thank you so much, Marcus. And thank you to all those. I see the people like Vernon saying thank you to Marcus Quintus. People who get those memberships. I love to see the sea of green out there, that it's just a sea of green, all members out there in the chat because you guys are getting those gift memberships. Troy Neenan said, could WB sponsor a lawsuit just to get discovery? I mean, it has to survive motion to dismiss to get discovery. So it's got to be like a reasonable lawsuit. If there's a cause of action, you can bring it.
could Warner Brothers sponsor a lawsuit to what?
To get Discovery? Well, it depends on what they want
sponsor
Discovery
a lawsuit
of.
against Disney? Is that what he means?
Yeah. You need to like target them specifically. Like, what would their end goal be? Right?
I don't think any other company out there like Warner Brothers or anybody wants to go down that road. Warner Brothers has all their own stuff going on right now. Zaslav's trying to dig out of the hole that he inherited with the Reverse Morris Trust spinoff last year from AT&T.
That being said, these rich people talk, you know?
Oh, they do.
And they're like, hey, bro, how about, like, these people are messing around. Because when you start messing with rich people's money, problems start coming up. Right. Like, you know, and that's what's happening with TSG, with these shareholder lawsuits. They're messing with people's money now. And that's where they're getting in trouble. Mr. Tickle Trunk for a Canadian 149.
What's up,
Thank
Tickle
you so
Trunk?
much for the popcorn. Appreciate it. It is all popcorn here on this channel. Popcorn and whiskey. We're sticking to the staples, really, what I call the basics of life. The bare
Tickle
necessities.
Trunk was like subscriber number 10
Appreciate
or 12 on the Valiant Renegade channel.
Appreciate you, Tickle Trunk. Appreciate your support. And appreciate all those supporting, whether you're just sending in super chats or whether you are smashing that like button or becoming a member. All right, so let's continue with this. So it's funny. They found out in 2022, so a full year later, took them a year to finally report that the company has been shaky. Now, Valiant, I know you were talking about it even back then. You knew even back then. But this is something that, you know, only became revealed after time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they only came out with these articles starting to say Disney discovered Bob Chapek was cooking the books. Bob Chapek shifted budgets to disguise their losses. And then they started to report in 2023 that Disney Plus lost subscribers.
Yeah.
Right. So
that was
clearly
the first
at that point,
big, oh, hello. You know, that was the first big one. And that again, those losses.
And by the way, hold on.
Yeah.
And that's when they reported the operating loss of $500 million to $1.1 billion in that first quarter of 2023, of fiscal year 2023.
Yep. And that's when some of the losses from Hotstar, India Hotstar, were starting to come into play. Right. Disney Plus was still gaining at that time internationally in core markets, meaning like South America, Western Europe, obviously North America. They were still gaining, but they were starting to shed subs in India with the loss of that IPL contract. So, and again, when I did my videos after those earnings calls, and everybody's like, oh, they're losing subscribers. And I'm like, dial it back. They're still picking up subs in their core markets. They're losing subs in the 75 cent a month user market.
Right.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's not great. You don't want to be losing subs, but the subs they are losing that are creating those net losses are the ones that if you had to shed subs, those are the ones you'd absolutely want to just wipe off the map.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me get into these important facts, which is exactly what you were talking about earlier, Valiant. And they bring these up in the lawsuit. They say, look, Iger pointed out that the goal now, when Iger took over again back from Chapek, so the goal now is cutting $5.5 billion in costs, including $2.5 billion in non-content jobs, right, that need to be cut, and $3 billion in content. So saying, in regards, we are targeting $5.5 billion in cost savings across the company. First, reductions to our non-content will be roughly 2.5, not adjusted for inflation. $1 billion in savings is already underway. Christine will provide more details. In general, the savings will come from reductions in SG&A and other operating costs across the company. To help achieve this, we'll be reducing our workforce by approximately 7,000 jobs.
Yeah, these are the big cuts.
So
and again,
the big cuts.
That was, you know, Chapek put that into motion. Iger picked up the ball and ran with it.
So here's the kicker. The kicker is, and this is something that you guys all heard live listening to Valiant Renegade, Iger stated the company will no longer, so it is not going to do it anymore, provide long-term subscriber guidance for Disney Plus. So they are now not even going to talk about it, right? It's not a topic anymore. They didn't even discuss, saying, like many of our peers, we will no longer provide long-term subscriber guidance in order to move beyond an emphasis on short-term quarterly metrics, although we will provide the color on relevant drivers. Instead, our priority is in enduring growth and profitability of our streaming business. Meaning we're going to cut back, we're going to trim the fat, but we're not going to talk about growth because it's in a loss period. We're in a scale back.
Not in terms of subscriber growth. And Andrew, I mean, you may remember this, and some of the viewers may remember this. Yeah. This is very similar language. If you recall, a couple of years ago, there was another big company, in fact, the biggest company out there, that said something similar that shocked folks, and that was Apple. Yes. And when Apple came out during an earnings call a few years ago and said, look, we're no longer going to talk about here's how many iPhones we sold or that we're guiding to selling for the next fiscal year, because Wall Street literally got so hung up on the number, not how much money, but just the freaking number of how many iPhones were sold, that it was causing too many problems for Apple, because Apple was trying to grow past this. Apple was trying to no, we're going to become a service revenue company. We're trying to get to the point to where we're going to have, and they have it now. You see the growth in their Apple services. Their subscription revenue has exploded in the last 2 years. And they didn't want to become a company that would be defined every year fiscally by how many fucking iPhones they sold at the Apple Store and Best Buy. It's like we're more than just the iPhone. So again, I'm not saying that they're directly comparative, but from the standpoint of it's a similar thing that happened with another big headline company, this is what Disney's doing here, saying, look, we're not going to keep guiding forward towards how many subscribers we think we're going to pick up. We're going to guide towards overall operating income, revenue, profitability, earnings per share, blah, 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 blah. And look, I think, again, to Disney's credit, I think that's a smart move. The problem is right now they're trying to get their foot out of the giant pile of cow shit that they've been stepping in for the last several years with all of the exuberance over, look how many subs we got. It's like they have to unwind that. The same way that Apple kind of did for years, touting how many iPhones they sold, and they realize we have to stop touting this, and we have to untrain what we've trained into people. And look, the same goes for Netflix and everybody else. Netflix had to make the same kind of pivot to where it's like, stop asking us and worrying about how many subscribers that we have or how many we picked up new in the quarter. We're reaching a point of saturation. Let's talk about how much freaking money we're making.
Well, yeah, but I mean, once again, they're not doing that, and so it's like failures.
No, Disney's making no money with Disney Plus. They're losing their ass with Disney Plus.
So to talk about it right here, there's still, so they were losing obviously the 4 million subs. We talked about that. We covered that live. You and I have talked about that ad nauseum. So during the the second quarter of 2023, which ended in April, they lost 4 million paid subscribers, which shocked analysts who expected it to add 1.7 million. Streaming revenues increased from year earlier due to a price hike, but there were still horrendous losses, right? So it was still at a loss, right? They were still running at a loss. Because of the news, Disney common stock declined $8.83 per share, more than 8% in a single day in May, which is absolutely bonkers. Yeah. So because of this, because of their declines in the market value, the shareholders have been damaged. So what are they suing for? They're suing for insider trading, right? They're saying that certain individual defendants capitalized on the artificially inflated stock by selling significant portions of their holdings of common stock. So Chapek and McCarthy sold tens of thousands of shares for proceeds of nearly 14 million. They're suspiciously large in quantity. The timing is inconsistent with pre and post relevant period trading practices. So Chapek sold 10,000 shares of his personal Disney stock between August 21 and September 21. McCarthy sold almost 80,000 shares of her stock between January 21st and February 21st for $12 million in profit. So that's what we would call, or what is alleged, but that is the nexus. That is the center of insider trading.
Yeah, and it could be. That's going to be for a court to decide. I mean, at the same time, that's kind of in that era when the Disney stock price was in the stratosphere. Now, what you
Yep.
also have to understand is that, for the people looking at this kind of thing.
Well, okay, but Valiant, real quick though.
Mhm.
Typically, if you are an executive or something else like that, you can set up, and I'm going to explain this in a very layman terms, and you can make it more technical. But you can set up pretty much a plan, like where you have a structured plan to like sell off your stock at like certain intervals, right?
Sure.
You can even put that out of your control, saying like, hey, a third party has control. This like a trustee has a plan to, okay, I'm going to sell my stock every quarter. I'm going to sell maybe 1,000 shares, whatever. I'm just making up a number, right? And you just say, okay, I'm going to put that. That will protect you. That will shield you from any potential liability, right? There are ways to protect you from accusations, insinuations of insider trading. And certainly, if you're the CEO, you have to be extraordinarily cautious of any view and any perception of insider trading.
Generally speaking, at that level, if you're going to sell any kind of significant number of shares, you'd probably have a sit down with your general legal counsel.
Right.
A company like Disney, like Carlos Gutierrez over there at Disney, talk about that and look, here's the thing. A lot of times with those higher level executives, they're being awarded X number of shares per year based on performance as part of their employment contract. So a lot of times they might have a salary of like $1 million a year, but they might have 5, 10, 15, 20, $25 million a year in stock and stock options afforded to them. And those stocks and stock options usually have some kind of holding period. They have a vesting schedule. So you have to hold them for X amount of period. So you might have to hold them for a year or 2 years or something like this.
Right.
And after which point, if you decide that you want to liquidate those shares, you can. So a lot of times these guys will sit on, and I'm not saying just at Disney, this is across the S&P and most publicly traded companies. A lot of times these guys will sit on these shares, and then they will decide once that vesting schedule is up and they can liquidate, they will. I know people that work for UPS that they get shares all the time. The guys that drive the trucks, they get shares of stock. Now, what happens is they get shares of stock every year as part of driving the truck for UPS. That's part of their compensation and bonus. They can decide to sit on the stock and hang on to it into their retirement, or after a certain period of time where they've held it, maybe 6 months, 3 months, or a year, they can turn around, they can liquidate that stock and just take the money and keep working.
Correct.
Same thing happens at the executive level. So just to, I just want to be cautious about, people thinking that just because somebody at the executive level sells shares of stock, that there's something nefarious going on.
Right. No, not necessarily.
Not
right.
Necessarily. Yeah.
But that being said, you have to be, once again, it's a balancing act, right? Just like balancing the duty of the company and the shareholder and the board, right? That's a balancing act. And when one thing falls out of balance, you get a question, right? So it's like, yes, you are allowed to, when things vest, it's your right to sell them, right? But you should do that, like you said, with consultation of the general counsel, with consultation of your financial advisor. There's many vehicles or ways to set that up to do that, and to keep it above board, right?
Yeah.
So let me get into some of these charges. So obviously we have the insider trading allegation, which is quite big, and I'll get into the actual count itself. So this is against the individual defendants, which are just all the individuals that were named, for violations of Section 14A of the Exchange Act. So Section 14A of the Securities and Exchange Act says it's unlawful for any person to use by the mail or means of interstate commerce, which means just essentially talking in any way by phone, email, whatever else, in contravention of the rules of the SEC, as the SEC may prescribe, to solicit or permit the use of his name to solicit any proxy or consent or authorization in respect to any security, right? And then it goes on to say that no proxy statement shall consider any statement at the time of which is false or misleading as to any material fact. So what they're saying is that those proxy statements about the financial situation of Disney Plus, about the profitability of Disney Plus, about the subscriber growth, by putting in those proxy statements, which are covered by the SEC, that is a violation of the Securities and Exchange Act. right? So this is something that's very important for you guys. When you file things that are covered by the SEC, they have to be true. That's why I flip out about the bonds, right? I'm like, this is crazy, because these are filed, these are subject to the purview of the SEC. They can look at these things. Proxy statements are covered. So you have to make sure that no statement that you put in there is false or misleading. So when I'm whipping my, when I'm twirling my t-shirt around my head, flipping out, it's because I see statements in there that could be false or misleading, which is at least grounds enough to file the suit. Whether or not they would win the suit at trial, they might lose at trial, right? But it's enough to bring it's enough to bring a claim at trial. That's why your counsel not only reviews the statements themselves, but everything that's said on these earnings calls. That's why when we pay attention,
that's why they're always scripted,
calls,
folks. People can. Yes. It sounds like he's reading from a script. Yes, they all read from a script for that reason. Until, of course, they get to the Q&A. So,
yeah. And Valiant, I know you gotta step out for 5 minutes, right? So
yeah,
I
gotta let the dogs out. I'm sorry.
Who let the dogs out? It's Valiant. I'll cover these super chats. Magitech Mag says some moolah to keep spilling the tea. Absolutely, we are gonna stay on this, guys. I'm gonna keep writing Disney like it is the rat version of Seabiscuit. I'm definitely all in on this. Mem says VR. Get to the super chats. Wait, wrong stream. No. This is. Mexican Iron Man will say it. He said it live with me. The Legal Mindset is the gold standard of super chats. Nobody else lives up to my super chat speed. I answer. I'm like a pizza delivery, like your super chat in 5 minutes or less. I wait for as soon as people stop speaking, I got your super chat. This is why we give the highest value at the Legal Mindset. Why I appreciate all the based members and also people like Tank Rat, who dropped 20 memberships. Thank you so much. Really balling out here. Between you and Ted Park, we are killing it here today with the OGs, the gangsters of the Legal Mindset channel. Appreciate you. Appreciate the gift of the membership. Guys, thank you for turning this into a sea of green out here. Thank you so much. All right, let's continue. Count number 2. We talk about another securities violation. So this is for against the individual defendants under 10B of the Securities and Exchange Act. So this says that essentially Disney's named as a defendant, that Disney has a federal law right of contribution against joint tortfeasors. So tortfeasors are people that do you wrong in civil court. So a tort is a civil wrong, right? So accordingly, plaintiff, on behalf of Disney, hereby claims contribution against the security actions defendants, each of which has been named in the currently pending related securities action as a joint tortfeasor with Disney under 10B. So all of these guys are in cahoots together. They are working together to undermine Disney. They're alleging that that's a separate cause of action under the Securities and Exchange Act. Also, welcome Torgo as a YouTube member. Appreciate you joining or rejoining the RPG. Very based of you. You have access to the emojis, which are going to be updated shortly. We're going to get Disney emojis shortly, so stay tuned for that. Okay, next cause of action we got here is we've got the breach of fiduciary duty. So this is their duty to be honest, to tell the truth, to be loyal, to give due care. They breached those duties by failing to put out accurate information, by being materially misleading, by putting out inaccurate information, by making inaccurate statements, by Chapek coming out there and lying about their losses, right, and the risks. These are things that led to them being or falling under this breach of fiduciary duty. So that is another thing they did wrong. Next, insider trading and misappropriation of information. So these guys, by selling their stock and by misappropriating their information about the reality to sell these shares, that's also a separate count that they can bring. So they're bringing that count as well. It's a 4th count. The 5th count is unjust enrichment. So these guys, by selling their stock, were unjustly enriched. So that's another breach of their duties. 6, they wasted corporate assets. They harmed the company. So by paying excessive bonuses, by giving themselves stock options, by incurring millions of dollars in legal liability and costs. They waste corporate assets. This is a huge one. More investors, more shareholders need to sue under this. I want to see all the shareholders sue Bob Iger for waste of corporate assets for the Reedy Creek suit. This is a huge potential cause of action. Who's covering this? Who's talking about this? Nobody's talking about this. This cause of action here for waste of corporate assets, Bob Iger right now should settle the Florida case. He knows Florida law. He knows what it is. I guarantee you there are lawyers out there that are putting out the information. Shit, he can tune into my YouTube videos and learn. He knows he needs to settle, but he is going through and paying legal bills. He's incurring liability, right? He's not telling the truth. This is what needs to go out here and happen. More shareholders need to sue him on that. So there's a huge possibility here, but this is related just to Disney Plus. So there can be a separate lawsuit regarding RCID that the shareholders bring up on this, 100%. Then there's a prayer for relief, which is asking for money and is asking for them to rule in their favor on all of these counts. It's brought by Ryan Ernst of Bellini and Clowder, and they're of counseling with Live Ships Law in New York. So that's what we got for those cause of action. So what do I think on this claim? I think it's fantastic. Now, of course, the one thing you got to understand about shareholder claims is they will settle. They do not want these things to go to discovery. They do not want these things to get far. They may try to get rid of it in a motion to dismiss, but if it survives that, they will try to settle. Disney will bend over backwards. They will pay out as much as they want to get them to go away. They are terrified of discovery on that. Like I've said, and Bexican Iron Man has confirmed this, we will do an audit live if we got discovery. If we get their financials, we will be auditing that on my stream live. They do not want that. That is a nightmare for them. They'll have the SEC breathing down their neck. They do not want that at all whatsoever. Mark of Reality for $20 said, so there's finally a derivative suit against Disney. Yes, it's been forever. We've been waiting for this for a while, but finally it's here. And I think this is the start of a flood. I think this is the start of a flood of lawsuits against Disney. I think that more and more shareholders are going to be emboldened to sue because they might as well get their pound of flesh. They might as well get their money and, get what they want out of Disney now while the getting is good, right? Like get while the getting is good. I think that's where they're going to be. I think that's where they're at. I think that's what the direction is that people see that Disney is not a profitable corporation. So, hey, we're going to end up suing. So anyways, sorry, we went through all the causes of action right now. So we finished those out. Insider trading, there's a lot of misappropriation of funds. And I think that the one that I brought up, Valiant, which might come up for RCID, is waste of corporate assets. So there's a cause of action for wasting corporate assets, specifically incurring unnecessarily risk, legal, financial liability, right? When you know better. I think for RCID and that suit in Florida, like shareholders may eventually say, you know what, you should have known better, right? You knew better and you pursued this like crazy train that cost us millions in legal fees. You need to pay up for this. That's something that I think could come down the line.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. I mean, I remember seeing an article in the past week talking about the estimated costs for CFTOD of like $6.5 million.
Tip of the iceberg.
Right, what they were going to spend with these Disney legal cases. But at the same time, I look at that and say, well, when they win, think of all the additional revenue that they're going to get. It's going to grossly, by orders of magnitude, exceed the cost involved in fighting Disney. Nobody, to my knowledge, has come up with an article suggesting what the cost to the Walt Disney Company is going to be to fight the state of Florida. I'm sure it's probably substantially more than $6.5 million.
They're paying more expensive counsel. So, like, if it's $6.5 million for these guys, right, for the CFTOD that are using like Florida counsel that are giving them government rates, they're like giving them very preferential rates, because like typically they give government like pretty good rates. Plus, it's a good PR for those lawyers as well. So I guarantee you they're giving them a very fair rate. And Disney is going to get its white glove counsel from all around the United States. They're probably charging $1,000 an hour on this case, and they're billing it to high heaven. Yeah, we're at 10 million is not 10 or 20 million would not be out of hand for Disney, because remember they're farming it all out. Disney is not doing this in-house. The in-house lawyers, I know the in-house lawyers, they cannot handle this. This is 100% outside counsel. This is above and beyond their normal legal expenses.
The in-house counsel for these guys like Disney are usually there to just help guide the outside counsel that's actually doing the heavy lifting.
They're quarterbacks. They're like the ones that are essentially saying, okay, we're throwing this to you, outside counsel, you run with it. Right. They're not actually there. And then they're filtering it for the board. Right. So they're taking the outside counsel information, which is raw and unfiltered, and they're putting a little pixie dust on it, doing a bump of pixie dust in the morning. And then they're putting it up and
lots
spinning it
of
up
pixie dust. Yeah.
So and by the way, Valiant, that's where I'm very, very convinced that's where Disney went wrong. Was I think the outside counsel, to their defense, probably did tell them the truth, but the inside counsel probably polished it and spun it in a way that's like, oh, well, here's the most favorable light for us, right? Here's what you want to hear.
And Andrew, let me ask you this. If you're outside counsel for Disney and you're getting these types of paychecks, are you going to argue with it, or just do what they tell you?
These outside counsel, no, they're gonna try to fluff them up, and that's what they try to do because they want the business.
Exactly.
Right? They 100% want the business. They want to keep Disney because Disney is a marquee for your firm. If you have that on there, it's like Coca-Cola or a big American company. I mean, an acknowledging company. That people around the world know. Super chats here. Marcus Squintus says, how often do the SEC or FTC or other alphabet feds begin investigations based on these type of lawsuits? Former local county cop, and rarely had dealings with the feds outside of drug cases. The states are much more likely to initiate, especially, to be honest, now that this has been politicized, you can't take that out as a factor. And I know that the law shouldn't. In an ideal world, I agree, and I wish for a world where politics is divorced from the law. I do, but this is a reality, and I talk about it with Valiant and Mexican Iron Man, WW Pro, where you can't ignore it. Right? It's coming into the courtroom and it's coming into the boardroom. The politics, and Disney has allowed politics in. So because of that, obviously they're politically aligned heavily with the Democratic agenda, with Biden's administration. So I have little faith that they're going to bring that, absent glaring public evidence that Disney created a very clear violation. I think the feds would need it to be so much that it's like so clear they have to prosecute it, or they're going to seem like because they're already in trouble with Trump for political prosecution, right? They're already being perceived as, just being real. Once again,
no, you're right.
This is the nexus. All of this stuff comes together. They're already being perceived this way. If they want to save even a shred of dignity, right, even a hair of dignity, right, they would have to go after Disney if they're exposed as violating SEC law, right, committing securities fraud.
Yeah, I mean, to what you're saying on your end, that's what I always used to refer to as they've burned all their political capital.
Yes.
I mean, so it's there's only so many times you can light the house on fire before there's nothing left but ash. So,
yes.
It's in that same vein.
Yeah, it's very much so. Going down the line, Kiss My Grits for 10 says, I bet Iger wishes that Fox cashback. He had Fox cashback. Yes. Disregard the Diz passes to RCID employees. What could happen if the Florida IG discovers RCID was being treated by Diz as one in the own of the business units? Whole bunch of issues. I mean, there's issues with the bonds, there's issues with the payments, there's issues with compensation, there's issues with gifts, there's issues with going after Disney for inappropriate use of public funds. There's restitution, so they could have them pay back the amount that they inappropriately gained off of RCID. So, for example, those cops, right? If it's found that, hey, Disney should have paid for those cops, those were not RCID employees, those cops that were just patrolling Disney that RCID paid for, they can order restitution. So Disney can have to back pay years of police officers that they hired as security solely for Disney with RCID funds. That is a huge liability for Disney. a massive liability, specifically on Disney. Disney's not going to get out of that one, right? So those are examples once you start looking into it. Once again, everybody deserves their fair day in court. The IG has to provide sufficient proof this happened, has to have the documents beyond a reasonable doubt, if these are crimes in many cases. So they've got to be proven at the criminal standard. But these are things that certainly can come. And honestly, as the days go by, I'm not being hyperbolic when they are becoming more probable. The more we see in Disney, the more it becomes probable that these things happen. It's always been possible, but it's becoming more probable day by day.
Mm-hmm.
JL says, Chapter 11, here we come. Not yet, but I mean, I think that their financial straits are becoming more dire. I think, we can joke about Chapter 11. They're probably further from that. But certainly pushing themselves into deeper financial straits or worse financial straits. Mark of Reality says, are they still using Pro Hoc Vice from California as their outside counsel? Yes, they are. They're using Pro Hoc Vice to get California, New York, and DC counsel into Florida. So their primary counsel that's really doing the work is their out-of-state counsel. They do have a Florida counsel that got them in, via Pro Hoc Vice. You have to have a Florida counsel that's stamping you in, but they're not doing the work. It's the outside counsel that's doing all the work, which is ridiculous. And let me see. Somebody said they sent me a Rumble rant, so I want to make sure that I try to catch that. Okay, Occupant sent a $10 Rumble rant. Let me catch that here real quick before I go on and get yours, Tank Rat. But we've got one here from Occupant, and shout out to all those people on Rumble. So, is it going to crash my? Okay, hopefully that works there. All right, Occupant says, do the independent auditors have protection from subpoenas, or do they have something like attorney-client privilege? They do not have the same level of privilege. However, there are certain protections you can have for financial filings. So that there's certain protections, but it's not like attorney-client privilege, right? And a lot of these things have to be disclosed, right? So a lot of it is something that, like, my issue for the accountants on the accounting side is, did they disclose what they needed to disclose? Did they know about risks and fail to disclose them? That's an issue for accountants. I mean, I don't know what you think about on the accounting side of Valiant. I've spoken to Mike on it, but I don't know what you think about in terms of all these accounting issues, because it seems like they're being brought to the forefront with the TSG lawsuit, with this lawsuit. What do you think about liability on the financial side?
You're talking about
for internals with Disney and their auditors and potentially in both their internal and maybe PricewaterhouseCoopers as well, right? The scrutiny on those guys for what they filed, right? For these financial filings that they were supposed to disclose, a whole litany of risks, which arguably they haven't disclosed.
I mean, it's a high burden of proof to show that an independent auditor like PwC was, complicit in some type of cover-up, and that's if they can prove the cover-up first. So I don't know about that. I don't want to speculate too deeply there, but certainly there is precedent for accounting firms, auditing firms that have been engaged in malpractice or malfeasance that have gone down the same primrose path. You look back at Enron and Arthur Andersen, for example. Can it happen? Sure. But you look back at the grand scheme of things and decide, well, how many times has this actually happened?
Right.
That's the kicker. It's very rare.
And this is very important, because this is the reality. It's like people ask, can you sue? It's like, sure. Can you prove it? Now we're a little harder, right? So it's like when you get to the burden of proof, which is what Valiant's talking about, the burden of proof is very high, right? To prove that they knowingly did that. Now, if anyone can have bad behavior that's kind of manifestly proven, it's Disney. I have faith in Disney's ability to screw up. And like, if there's precedential case on this, I think Disney might have a chance. But look, it is speculation at this point. We have to see the evidence, right? Of course. Tank Rat for 100 dinar says, stockholder lawsuit, RCID lawsuit, IG inspection of RCID, Hulu buyout, Disney Plus failing, 21CF lawsuit, loss of $1 billion in movies, TSG lawsuit, right? Am I missing anything here? Die Disney. Yeah, no. I think that's pretty much it. Plus the TSG lawsuit, or maybe you're talking about that as part of the stockholder lawsuit, but that's not really stockholder; they're financiers. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, there's a lot going on right now. 2 state lawsuits, by the way. 2 lawsuits for RCID, the state lawsuit and the federal lawsuit. So yeah. I mean, that's been a whole lot of fun for us to cover, hasn't it, Valiant?
Oh yeah, very much so. Been covering it.
We're very, very much going to stay on it. Dark Loaded says, "Thanks for the forum, LM." No, thank you guys for the forum. Thank you guys for hanging out, and thank you guys for getting me over 1,000 live viewers, and we've gotten almost 900. We're actually at 892, almost 900 likes on this. So if 8 of you can smash the like button and you haven't yet, I would strongly appreciate that. Also, I will strongly appreciate you guys if you go over here to my good friend. He has a very poverty channel. It has a mere 46,000 subscribers here.
Oh Lord, here we go.
It is just, I feel very sorry for him. It's like a charity case. He's got this little channel called Valiant Renegade, and guys, I will say he is 3,200. Let's get over here. Let's subscribe to his channel. Come on, let's get him over here. Let's get him to 50K. Let's do it.
We're working on it
for Valiant.
Yeah, and the second channel too, right there. That's where all the clips from the live shows go.
Getting it to 10K would be the goal here. So
I think it'd be really cool if, with September coming up, I think that in the month of September, it's incredibly doable that the main channel will be at 50K and the live show clip channel will be at 10 in the same month.
Absolutely 100% doable. We can do it, guys. So let's get Valiant to 50K on his main channel. Let's get him to 10K on that. The man deserves it. He works hard. He's on top of these stories. Like, he's honestly covering these more diligently than anybody else I know, and he's recording immediately. He's a guy after my own heart. Like, I get a complaint. Like today, I got this legal complaint. I'm like, fresh complaint. It's like fresh meat for the grinder. I'm streaming. I'm telling my thumbnail guy, I'm like, hey, get on working on this thumbnail. I got to go live. I'm doing a placeholder. I'm going in. I'm not waiting to bring you guys this information live, and Valiant does the exact same thing because he's one of the hardest working men out here on YouTube. So guys, make sure you subscribe to both guys. Valiant, I definitely hope to be on your channel. Hope to record some stuff with you on this, other topics. Do you have anything else you want to plug before we kind of tune out here for the night?
No, check out I did a couple of videos today with the Ahsoka news that we kind of touched on earlier. I've got some more stuff coming out later in the week on movie theaters, and they're not doing really that well. I mean, I know a lot of places out there like Forbes are touting this is one of the best summers they've had in a few years. Obviously, since COVID, it's matching some earlier records. But when you actually dive into the numbers and you really see what's what, it's not what it seems to be. The movie theaters obviously know this, but I think the rest of the public is still largely in the dark. So.
People are waking up though. People are catching on. People are learning the truth, and I think a big part of it is what your channel's done, what I try to do on my channel, and what I hope we can continue to do together. Magitech Mag says VR has been on fire for over a year. Keep up the grind. Let's do it. Yeah, we're not quitting anytime soon. We're going to be grinding on this throughout these lawsuits, throughout these challenges, and throughout all the scandals going on with Disney.
No grinding on me though, please.
Not that type of grinding. Not that type of grinding. Not the type of grinding that goes on in clubs that may be 500 meters from me. Marcus Squintus says VR hashtag 50K by October. Yes, very much is going to get to 50K. Let's do it. Guys, subscribe, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure that you didn't get unsubscribed. Make sure the notification bells are dinged. They're still dinged. Go back and re-ding them. Ding them for another time for Mindset. I will catch you guys all later. I will be on shows like VRs, WW Pro, other good folks out there. Until next time, though, guys, catch you later. Peace.
Take care.